So that band, Sixpence None the Richer, is actually a Christian band. So in this video, I just want to talk a little bit about Christianity and culture. I'm going to caricature two different kinds of Christian ways of approaching culture. And then I'll give a little bit of my thoughts on Christian culture. I actually remember going to Sunshine Christian Armory with my mother. When I was introduced to Lifeway, I was like, this is Sunshine Christian Armory Part 2. I actually bought the cassette tape of Sixpence None the Richer with Kiss Me on it. Some of you, do you know what a cassette is? Some of you? I'm just kidding, that was mean. Everybody knows what a cassette is, right? I remember popping it into the radio in the car with my mom and listening to that. And then what I think ended up happening is just over time, I was with everybody else just part of this cultural evolution where that song now is played on like Kill Tony. And when people start singing it and they know it, they just know it. But I don't know how many people know that that's actually a Christian band.
It's from a C.S. Lewis book called Mere Christianity, and there's a story in the book where a child asks his father for a sixpence to buy the father a gift, and the father gives the child the money, and then he's really happy with the gift that he gets, but he realizes he's not any richer or better off financially for the transaction because he gave the child the money in the first place. And so C.S. Lewis was comparing that to his belief that God gave us the gifts that we have, and that to serve him with those gifts the way that we should be humble and realize where we got the gifts in the first place.
Literary reference. The book is called Mere Christianity.
Yeah. All the time you need.
Thank you. All right.
What's the matter? You all right?
I'm scared. This
Of
is
what?
awesome. This is just all my dreams are being fulfilled. Let me tell a story though. There's a
Kiss Me, Sixpence None the Richer.
Oh my God! Kiss me. Sixpence None the Richer.
That
You
was
got
the first time I
band?
learned to play on guitar. Yeah.
Me too.
Where are they now?
All over Rosemary Hill. Time ago.
Aged beautifully and still singing the same song. Can you imagine for like however many years, 20 plus years, singing the same song?
Sunshine is where they have Bible Man.
Sunshine!
Shield of faith, helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit.
When I was young, the original Bible Man run was like the late 90s, and when I was young, my after-school program was a really Christian spot. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is the OG Bible Man that looked like a sex offender in disguise. That's what superheroes used to look like in the Golden Age. Bible Man's the only man who could beat King Arthur in a sword fight. Will Ames, he's 5'6". No, he's not. This dude's like 4'7". A literal 9-year-old was taller than him.
But as a teenager, he moved in with 7 other kids to take on the role of Tommy Bradford in the 70s comedy drama 8 is Enough. What did it do to your life?
Completely turned it upside down.
I had a Bible Man foam mask, a purple Bible Man cape, and then the Velcro stopped working on it. So I had to take a pin. Defeating the shadow of death! I can hear it! I can hear it! Just saying it!
Who's the brand new evil in your town?
Shadow of death.
The gossip coin. Oh my gosh!
1 John 5:4 says that through our faith comes our victory. Where will your victory come from, demon?
I remember going to Sunshine Christian Armory, and I always spent so much time listening to like the CDs and stuff. Skillet. I don't think this was their first album, but it was one of their first albums. But where it. I also don't want to forget about What If Cartoons Got Saved.
I was thinking the other day, what if cartoons got saved? Fred and Wilma Flintstone, singing hallelujah.
And a friend of mine recently told me actually that, if I remember correctly, that he was in a worship service where they played that song. There's like on one end of the spectrum, I'm gonna characterize and just say a lot of people in the 90s and stuff with little to no accountability were like, let's make some songs for Jesus, some rock and roll for Jesus. And Rich Mullins had a lot to say about that.
People often listen to a lot of contemporary Christian music, and I'm not always sure I get why. Because I play it, and I know there's not a lot to most of it. Sometimes it concerns me, the number of people that can quote my songs. Yeah. Or they can quote the songs of several different people, but they can't quote the scriptures. So if you want entertainment, I suggest Christian entertainment, because I think it's good. But if you want spiritual nourishment, I suggest you go to church or read your Bible or something, and let this entertain you, but look beyond this for what you really need in life.
Hey, Editing Bob here. Just want to pop in and say that I don't technically put Sixpence None the Richer in that category of thoughtless. These are people who, doesn't seem to me, saw themselves as Christian artists per se, but Christians who were artists. They, as Christians, engaged with culture like normal people, and their faith just came out. And I think you might could put Rich Mullins in that category as well.
You must be a Baptist over there.
And again, it's a spectrum, right? I'm saying over here, you have this way of doing Christianity and culture, and it's more like, let's just do it, and it's little to no thinking. And then the other end of the spectrum, I would define as super serious thinking. And this book, created and creating by Bill Edgar. Huh? Robert. I said Edgar, not Eggers. Just in the first 20 or 30 pages, he outlines all these different ways of thinking about it. And I would say that, not singling out any one denomination, there's just a group of Christians on one end of the spectrum that just seriously think very hard about culture and Christianity. So on one end of the spectrum, let's just do it. And what ends up happening is like things become like super big, and a lot of money gets involved, and their pockets get super deep. There was just not a whole lot of accountability, but they never really thought about it, and they just did it, and they made a lot of money. We're not mad at those people for all the good things and fun things that we had in that crew. And then the other end of the spectrum is like super serious thinking, very serious thinking about it. In the conversation with my friend about what if cartoons got saved, we agreed that there's nothing wrong with the idea of Christian culture. It's just that the ways that we have not made the right distinctions muddy the waters a little bit. This isn't worship. This isn't Lord's Day worship, but it's Christian culture. And how are we supposed to think about that? And I think one of the reasons that conversation is very tricky is because of the otherworldly nature of our faith, that we're not of this world, and yet there's an in this worldness sense to our faith. And I think that because of both of those realities, it just makes it tricky for us. And you have two ends of the spectrum, two different ways of thinking about it, where it's like, I'm just going to check out and not really think about it, and I'm going to make some money. But then on the other end of the spectrum, I'm going to like think myself to death about this before I can like have the proper motivation and gumption to go gung-ho into this. Out of culture and politics, I've talked more about faith in its relation to politics than I have culture so far on the channel. But there is a lot of overlap, because you're talking about society and how it orients itself and how it lives itself out, and how individuals that make up that society see themselves and see the society and see themselves in relation to the society, and themselves and the society's end, what their goal is, which all has to do with what a society believes is good and true and beautiful, what an individual in light of that and all that. And yeah, like I said in my Jordan Peterson video, is he a friend or a foe to the church? Well, he's not a foe. He's not attacking the church. He's not persecuting the church. And yeah, don't you want like Christian publications making money? Don't you want Christian ideas being valued in your culture and in your society? And isn't like where you put your money shows like where your value is? One of the things I've said a lot on this channel is that Christians have had an awkward relationship to politics, and they think super hard about it, and they end up coming out with politics that aren't for normal people. Normal people don't have time or bandwidth to do that much thinking in order to motivate themselves to be engaged with politics. And the same thing is true with culture. And what I've noticed is that a lot of Christians on this end of the spectrum have very often after doing all that thinking, end up coming out with a way of engaging with culture that basically means just creating and fabricating that culture, their own culture, for themselves. And the best example of this that I can think of is Moscow, Idaho, with Doug Wilson.
This former art house movie theater, Wilson leads his campaign to make Moscow a Christian town.
You have Canon Press, and everybody is 100% intellectually and emotionally engaged and passionate about what it is that they're doing. And that's big too. I don't think either of those ways of Christians engaging with culture, either of those generalizations, is a way of engaging with culture for normal Christians. I think that normal Christians are going to benefit from the pieces of art and media that both ends of that spectrum produce. I think, in fact, they're pretty critical. Normal Christians are critical of doing Christian art that's just like super commercialized. But I also think that normal Christians see this super intellectualized version of Christian culture and Christian media from something like a Moscow, Idaho, and they're disenfranchised with that too. They're like, that's kind of silly. Most normal Christians realize that culture is not something that you engage with without any thinking. And most normal Christians know that culture is not something that can be fabricated. They intuit this. And this is kind of just an introduction on exploration of Christianity and culture that I'll do more in the future. Culture is deep. What a deep way of saying it. Slightly different, but a little bit similar to that. By culture, I mean a repertoire of socially transmitted and intra-generationally generated ideas about how to live and make judgments, both in general terms and in regards to specific domains of life. Kevin Van Hooser said, culture is a world in the sense that cultural texts create a meaningful environment in which humans dwell both physically and imaginatively. Culture is the lens through which a vision of life and social order is expressed, experienced, and explored. It is a lived worldview. Culture is the software that determines how things function and how people relate in a given society. So see, I think those three quotes pulled together kind of demonstrate a thoughtful articulation that culture can't be fabricated. It's not that we're disengaging in our thinking and just doing it and not doing any thinking about it, but it's also a recognition that it can't be fabricated. It's in. And if you think about it, when you as an individual is part of a society and part of a church and part of a community, sharing values with others, and when your faith as part of those values is something that you're sharing with others, culture just comes out of you and it comes out of the societies that you're in. And maybe that's why when you pick up yet another Christian book on Christians and engagement with culture, you kind of roll your eyes. Because isn't there a sense where you just say, I mean, is it really that complicated? Don't you just live, which is kind of Van Hooser's point? Isn't it just living? So we do a religion and we do politics and we make and create. We live and when God is at the center of who we are as individuals and as societies, then culture happens. So totally lege, if you want something that's stimulating, go and make something. And stay Baptist, my friends.
It's been confirmed that the aliens have landed.